keep swinging the axe and keep chopping wood, if you will, and eventually the tree will fall and you'll be back, day after day after day, and stick to the process and keep practicing and keep grinding, and eventually, if you keep swinging the axe, the tree's going to fall.
Well, hello, I'm Stephen Holder here with Zach Keefer, and this is Chopping Wood, and damn, do we have some wood to chop. We got a lot going on. So it's, what are we in, week 5? Peyton Manning getting his number retired this week, statue going up, Colts trying to get a win against the San Francisco 49ers, and all of that, frankly, is second fiddle right now to the day that we've had, which is charting the return to practice of Andrew Luck. You probably have heard of him.
Who makes Peyton Manning second fiddle on West 56th Street?
One guy.
Right.
12.
Yeah, right.
I mean, this has been you're tired of us going round and round and speculating and maybe shoulda, coulda, woulda. I mean, it's been exhausting for you. It's been exhausting for us. But Andrew Luck practiced today. He was out there with a helmet and a jersey on, and he practiced on a football field with his teammates. And so I guess now, Zach, we just got done talking to him, and let's just give people our main takeaways from this. There's a lot to cover here, but we're going to just jump right in because, we've been kind of bantering between ourselves here for the last few minutes, and Andrew Luck covered a lot of ground today. He's gone through a lot. This has been tough for him. But for you, what were your main takeaways, whether injury-related or just Andrew himself, or just what did you take away from that?
Very revelatory interview on Andrew Luck's standards. This is a guy that, we were just talking. Usually when we talk to him, he talks about how good the defense is they're facing that week, how good his receivers are, and how tough his offensive linemen are fighting. It's very, very monotone almost every week. This was the complete opposite. We learned a lot. Look, two things jump out right away. One, this has been very, very difficult for him. He's been very frustrated. There have been doubts, not necessarily that he would come back, but why it's taking so long, and that sort of led to the conversation with Drew Brees that we'll get into in a minute. Secondly, he's not there yet. It's going to be a little while. I don't know what a little while means necessarily. I don't think anybody does. But he is still very much in the process of regaining full strength in that right arm and getting into football mode again. And he even mentioned taking a snap from a sweaty lineman and getting his receivers on the same page. And that's, he threw with 2 receivers today for the first time since December. It's going to take some time. So this is not a thing that's going to snap his fingers and he's going to be ready to play on Sunday. I think it's going to be a couple of weeks at least, maybe probably more.
Yeah, I think at least. In fact, I'm less sure about the timeline. Not that I was ever sure, but
right. What's the timeline?
Right.
Yeah.
I feel less confident about making projections about his return to the actual playing field, to a game. I think before I talked to him today, I was thinking, all right, he won't play this week. He probably doesn't play next week, but the Titans game, the Jacksonville game, 3 weeks out, no, that's pretty reasonable. Now, that may still happen, but I feel like what we heard just now, I feel a lot different, and I don't feel like I'm prepared to say that.
I don't think we can talk about him playing in a football game until he puts a full week of practice together, and he mentioned that. That's the first time you can actually ask the question with some conviction, right? Because until then, this is a part of getting him back to practice every day. He's not going to practice tomorrow. He will be back out there Friday. We're going to have to see him practice every day for maybe 2 weeks before they feel good about it.
Right, and I think week 1 of that process would be next week at the earliest.
Right.
At the earliest. Because right now, as you said, he's not going to practice tomorrow. That is by design. They want him to, I guess, not stress the shoulder too much by going 2 days in a row. So they want to definitely, they've said all along, it would be baby steps. Well, this is baby steps. If I've ever seen it, right?
Very much so.
And today, let's keep in mind, he didn't go all the way through practice. He did individual drills. Well, first the quarterbacks do a warm-up session, which is what you may have seen on social media. We were all there for that. We posted those videos and photos, and it's, look, it's kind of laughable. They're throwing the ball 10 yards to each other.
Right.
But it's really a warm-up session. It really isn't designed to be the sort of throws you'd make in a game. So there's that, and then after that, after we left, the way it is explained to us, he did what they call routes on air, which is a much more rigorous portion of practice, and they're throwing to the receivers. They're running specific routes. Now, they're really scripting this for Andrew. He's not throwing all of the routes yet, so I guess you can imagine him, for example, not throwing deep outs or in post routes, right, to Ty and Dante Moncrief, right, because that wouldn't seem to be something he'd do on day one. But certainly even throwing slants and curls for Andrew, this was a huge step, and I don't want to underplay the step that he made today by going out there and participating in somewhat live action for the first time since January.
Right, and kind of switching gears to his sort of mindset right now, it was sort of a different Andrew Luck that we saw, a little uncomfortable up there at times.
He used that word.
Yeah, and you could tell his face kind of reddened a little bit, and his foot started to twitch a little bit. He didn't love, one, he never loves talking about himself, but two, he's been uncomfortable the last month or so with the idea that he has to stay on the sidelines and watch this team. You know, they're 1-3 right now. They're not very good. They keep losing games. He felt like dead weight. Those are his words. And you know that's been wearing on him. And he used the word frustrated more than once. And he reached out to Drew Brees. And there have been some doubts in his mind. You know, why is it taking so long? Where's the strength? Where's the strength? He kept asking himself that, he said. And he said Drew Brees offered some assurances. You know, look, it'll come. It'll come. You have to stay patient. A posterior labrum surgery, which Andrew explained, just takes a little bit on the long end of these shoulder surgeries, and Drew Brees was much more complete of a shoulder repair.
Right.
But we're going on to 10 months into this repair for Andrew Luck, and he's just starting his first day of practice. So there's no doubt that this has worn on him. And this is where we're at. And I said, are you surprised by the fact that, you know, all summer and all spring you were saying there's no reason to panic, we'll be fine, and you didn't practice until October 3rd, you know? Does that surprise you? And he didn't really answer that. But you could really tell that this was not what he thought going into this. He did not imagine being out for this long. I don't think he could have foreseen this situation, and it's been hard on him.
I think even if he did know this was possible, I don't think he was prepared for it.
Right, as a competitor, as a football player, I mean that's how he pays his bills, right? He's a competitive professional athlete. You always assume, oh, I'll do it faster, I'll do it better, I'll get back. I trust in myself. And he's had to be patient, and it's not about wanting to get back. It's about, you know, letting the time, you know, pass.
Yeah, and we've told you quite a bit and quite often on here about Andrew's personality and the competitive side of him. And I mean, if you watch him play, I think you know that, right? So we've talked a lot about that, and I think there's a juxtaposition here. There's that guy, and now juxtaposed with this other guy who he has to be currently, a guy who just has to sit on the sideline and be patient and wait and do all the things that he hates to do, okay? He hates to sit there and not be able to do something about it, whether it's a game or a season or practice or a meeting. You know, he wants to be involved. You see him on the sidelines, okay? And when Jacoby Brissett comes off and he's talking to Brian Schottenheimer, the quarterback's coach, he is right there,
literally
in his pocket,
sitting right next to Jacoby Brissett. Tolzien's somewhere else on the sideline. Andrew Luck wants to be in this game so bad, and he's had to watch this team go on the West Coast and get 46 points dropped on him twice, and then blow a game against the Cardinals. You could tell. You could tell right through it. He's not happy.
Yeah, and I think you talked earlier about him saying he was uncomfortable, and one thing I would say about that is we saw a different Andrew Luck today, and you kind of already said this, but one thing to put that in context, I think what you saw is a guy who doesn't, like you said, don't like to talk about himself, but also doesn't like to admit that anything's wrong, right?
Right.
When Andrew Luck's been hurt in the past, what has he said to us? I'll be fine. It's no big deal.
Guys get hurt in the NFL all the time.
Lacerated kidney? No big deal.
He hates the focus and the added attention that comes with the position he plays and the severity of this injury.
Yeah, and
that's why we haven't heard from him in 8 weeks.
Right, and then here he is today being very, very vulnerable, which for Andrew Luck, I mean, for me it was so jarring to see him that way because I've never seen him that way. And it was really eye-opening. I mean, you and I both been covering him for several years now and have never seen this side of Andrew Luck. It was a guy who I think was almost still coming to terms with this whole thing. You know?
This was a humbling process for him.
Yeah.
And he admitted that.
Which is not to say he's arrogant, but humbling in terms of like, I can't do something.
Right.
Yeah.
And it comes in accordance with the way he plays the game of football. Reckless, fearless. It's what makes him so great. and it's what also has gotten him in trouble the last couple of years, and he's paying the price right now, and he was not expecting the price to be this severe, and it's made him question some things. He said he's asked himself some questions over the last couple months, about this. And I said, what are those questions? And he wouldn't reveal them to me, but it was worth a shot. And very, very revealing, different kind of vibe coming out of that press conference today from Andrew Luck.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate the honesty. I mean, not that he lies to us, but he doesn't reveal as much. And I thought today, as you said at the opening, it was revelatory. And I thought that was unusual.
I can see situations where he's in the training room and they're saying, we're not ready to put you out of practice. And he says, why? Or he says, why is this arm not 100%? Why is this taking so long? I
Would
can
you
just
hate
see
to be
that
his doctor?
happening. Right, yeah.
You would hate to be his doctor.
Yeah, he just wears you out.
Just kick
He's
your tail.
impatient, and just look at the way he plays. I mean, that's how he's probably attacking this rehab. So he does see a light at the end of the tunnel. He does believe he'll be better because of it, not just physically. Obviously, that's the whole point, right, to get that shoulder fixed. But mentally, he says he will appreciate the position more. He will look at the position in a different way. He will appreciate practices and all that stuff more. So maybe that's a good thing in the long run. But as for right now, it's going to be a little while.
Yeah, I think so. But on the other hand, though, I made sure to ask Andrew, will you play this season? Is there any doubt whatsoever? And he looked at me like I had three heads.
Right.
And he was like, oh, yeah.
If he wasn't going to play this season, he would lose his mind.
Look, whether he
would
plays,
not be a happy man.
No question. Whether he plays is still to be determined. But in his mind, he is playing, and there ain't nothing you can tell him to indicate otherwise.
Right.
So
if he's not playing, then what is he doing all this for right now?
Right.
I
think he clearly plans on it.
You talk to people around the building, and so do I. And I mean, sometimes when a guy gets hurt, you don't see him for a while. Mm-hmm. He was here all spring, all summer, all fall, rehabbing here every single day. And that tells you, I mean, that's a lens into how committed he is, one, to this team, mm-hmm. and two, to getting back on the field because, boy, this team needs him right now.
It sure do. So I guess the question now is, look, when he gets back, well, first of all, the timeline we still don't know, but when he gets back, the other question is, what kind of player is he going to be, right? I mean, that's something we can't even begin to speculate on.
Based on those throws today at practice, don't right. Overreact to those, please.
Yeah, that again, as I said, just warm up. But there's two topics here. There's two phases, I guess. There's him getting back, which is a process unto itself, and then there's, well, what's he going to be like when he gets back? Because, I mean, he already said today he's got several more steps to go before he gets to the point where he can, as he said, the word he uses, make NFL-level throws.
Right.
So that tells you maybe he's not making those kinds of throws yet, or certainly they're not opening it up for him to make those kinds of throws just yet.
That's kind of the takeaway I had.
Yeah.
That he's not making those throws yet.
Certainly not at the level that
agree? You agree?
Yeah, not at the level that he expects of himself. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I get that, and they're playing it safe, and I get all that. At some point, his arm's going to be back to 100%. At some point, he's going to be ready, at least physically. When do you just kind of release the dogs and just say go and let them maybe in a live portion of practice, or that's going to be a decision probably Jim Irsay makes or Chris Ballard makes, but Chuck Pagano, and then how does he respond to that? And then when does he become Andrew Luck again? When does he get that confidence back?
I think all of those things are going to happen in stages, right? I mean,
probably.
I don't think the first day he walks out there in a game between the lines under the lights, I don't think he's the same guy. And maybe by the second quarter he's a little closer, and maybe by the third quarter he's a little more closer, and then the next week and so on. I think it's going to come in stages. I don't think day one Andrew Luck is Andrew Luck, and I think he would probably tell you that in a moment of complete honesty.
That doesn't mean he can't make some ridiculously impressive plays.
But
in spurts.
But again, if he gets cleared to play and everything looks good, you damn well better put him out there because he's the best they got.
Right.
Which brings us to Jacoby Brissett, who, God bless his heart, but Jacoby, I mean, what he has done, so impressive. But they clearly, I'm not saying they should fast track Andrew Luck, but when Andrew Luck's ready, they have to play him.
Right.
And I think we're at that point now. Yeah. We've seen enough of Jacoby Brissett to know that.
I don't care where they are in the standings. I don't care who they're playing. If 12 is cleared and healthy and the doctors feel good about it, you play him. You don't ask any questions. And there will be a tangible impact on the mindset of the team. I guarantee it. I've talked to some guys, and they could tell you all they want about, we believe in Scott. That's before week 1. And Jacoby's been great, right? He lifts him up. He gives him a shot, the deep ball. But Andrew Luck being on the field will change the complexion of this offense. And I know that's an obvious statement, but I mean it in just the way he lifts up the offense and the way he gives guys a belief that they have their best chance to win. It's huge, and it can't be understated enough.
Yeah, I will tell you this, though, as the more I think about this, and we just, as we're recording this, we just finished the press conference a little while ago, so some of these thoughts are still just like bouncing around my head. So forgive the bouncing around here. But I would say like today, all in all, today was a very significant day. I still feel that way, even though we're not there yet. Andrew's not there yet, and it's going to be a while. It could be several weeks, right? We all understand that, but
the fact that he's practicing,
I'm telling you, this is more than a symbolic thing here,
right?
I'm telling you, because that tells me, and you've talked to a lot of doctors, Zach.
Yeah.
When he goes back to practice, that's an indicator that the shoulder is healed.
Yeah.
The shoulder is good to go. That means there are not complications. They aren't wondering how it's going to hold up. They are 100% sure about his shoulder at this point. And that doesn't mean that he won't be sore, he won't maybe have discomfort or what have you. I mean, he's a human being and he had a pretty serious surgery on his shoulder, but certainly the way they have slow played this thing,
right,
it would tell you that he has come a long way and that he is all the way back physically.
Yeah, this isn't like we have a big game Monday night and we need him back and he'll probably be okay. No, this is absolutely 100% certainty. And I think the final steps, the final hurdles, beyond the mental side of it, is going to be him making those NFL throws, going from just throwing to throwing to guys. One, routes against air, right? I mean, out routes, all those deep posts, all that stuff. Those NFL caliber throws, and then against the defense, right? He needs to throw into windows and throw against a pass rush and that kind of things. Those are the final steps. They're significant, but the biggest hurdle, which is the strength in that shoulder, has been cleared, I believe. He would not be on the practice field otherwise.
Right. So that's, the ray of sunshine you can take away from this. I mean, beyond just him just being out there symbolically, I think in the bigger picture, there's an actual huge meaning behind that as well.
Right.
And the other question here for Chuck Pagano and the coaching staff is, forget about the medical questions. I mean, that the doctors and trainers will still be very much involved in this process. Okay, they're going to manage him in terms of pacing him and all that. But even outside of that, there's some football decisions, right? How will they know he's ready? And I actually don't think it's going to be that hard to know.
That's a good question, though, because I've thought about asking Chuck Pagano that, but I don't know if I'll get a good answer.
No, you won't.
What makes you in your head know that he's ready? It's not going to be just the doctor saying he's ready to play.
Well, right, they will do that.
Right,
but
right.
But in addition to that, you have to feel comfortable putting him out there. And I think it's going to be pretty easy. You'll look at him and you'll say, that's an Andrew Luck throw.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
And he'll just
that looks
have
like
that
the
presence.
guy. That looks like the guy we saw last year, the year before, the year before, the year before. You'll know. He'll pass the eye test.
If he looks ordinary, he's probably not himself.
Right.
But he's not an ordinary quarterback.
He doesn't play ordinary. He doesn't do things normal. You'll know. I think you'll see that. I think you'll see a throw in practice, and okay.
And I think Andrew will have a certain swagger when he gets to that point.
I don't think he's there yet, based on what we just discussed.
I didn't see swagger just now.
No,
I did not see that.
Right.
And that's fine. But I'm just saying, I think he's not a cocky guy, but he has a hell of a lot of swagger. I did not see it there today. What I saw was, like I said, vulnerability. Saw a guy who's like, man, this has been so hard.
Yeah.
And it was almost hard for him to put it into words.
He said that at one point.
Yeah. And it's so unusual to see him in that way, as I said. But I think you'll start to see. I think we'll know when he's closer, when we start to hear him talk more confidently.
Right.
Because that really comes through with him.
And I think unquestionably, this is something that will stay with him throughout the rest of his career. And he could go on to do great things, and we expect him to.
Mm-hmm.
And so does this franchise that needs it to. I mean, Super Bowls and all that. And I don't mean physically, but I mean mentally. He will remember this and how grueling it was to get back on the field. And I mean, you look what Drew Brees has done in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. It can be done after this surgery. But this is something that's not going to leave him mentally anytime soon. It has definitely changed the way he thinks about the game of football.
Yeah. So that's a lot of luck talk here. But there are other things going on, believe it or not. And another one of those things involves a guy who's not going to play this week. It's Peyton Manning. You may have heard of him as well. I think he played quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. And so, as you know, he's going to be honored this coming weekend. He's going to be the first Colt to have a statue. I mean, that's not something you certainly see every day. And then he's going to have his number retired and go into the Ring of Honor on Sunday at halftime of the game against the 49ers. Now, Zach, you have been working on a really interesting story, which is really just going back and talking to people who cross paths with Manning over the years.
Right.
And I know you've talked to 487 people, but if you could, maybe share with us a story, a vignette that was most memorable or one that really stood out to you, if you can think of one.
I talked 480 might be too many. That
was
sounds like
80.
Every former Indianapolis Colt. The stories were peeks inside both him as a football player and you know about the hours he spent watching film, but also as a human being, as a fan, as a teammate, as a friend. I mean, there's stories about him getting beers with Bill Belichick. There's stories about him playing roulette with Pat McAfee and French Lick at the casino. There's stories about him getting a receiver benched during a game. There's stories about him calling out coaches during film sessions. I ran the gauntlet. I talked to so many guys from so many different relationships with Peyton, coaches, media guys, who tell stories about Peyton not even knowing how to dress himself in the second year of his career, so we would have Polaroids of outfits out, so we would know what to wear. So just some amazing stuff. I mean, I laughed at just about every single one of them when I was transcribing all the tape, and teammates, coaches, GMs, media guys. I guarantee you will learn something about Peyton Manning with every story, and you'll laugh a lot when you read it. So that'll be out Thursday morning on the Indianapolis Star's website.
Yeah. So what do you think? What's the juxtaposition here? I guess that's the second time I've used that word in this podcast.
Andrew Luck would be proud, though.
I think
he
would
corrected himself, by the way, today after using the double negative, and so his arm is not quite 100%, but the man has not lost a step when it comes to grammar.
To which I told him in the middle of his press conference, okay, stop.
Yeah,
Just stop.
He'll never change.
He can't change. He is who he is. But anyhow, there is a little bit of there's some irony here. You know, there's Peyton Manning going into the Ring of Honor, and here's this Colts team that has now given up 46 points in 2 of its first 4 games, and coming off a drubbing out there in Seattle, which maybe we should touch on here in a second. But anyhow, coming in here to this 49ers game 1-3, just needing a win in the worst way.
Oh yeah.
And here Peyton Manning, the greatest player in franchise history and all that, going into the Ring of Honor, having a statue built, and the team is nowhere.
Here's the juxtaposition that you mentioned. Here's what it is, and this is a quote from Peyton Manning. His rookie year they went 3-13. The next year they went 13-3, and he said, "I never forgot to. You never can take winning for granted." And you see the Colts without Peyton Manning in 2011. You see him right now without Andrew Luck, and they're trying everything they can to get Jacoby Brissett up to speed. But they're 1-3, and they're not a very good football team. And without those two guys, this is what they are.
Yeah.
And that just shows you how important, one, those positions are, and two, how lucky you are to have those two guys at quarterback, because this team has won so much in the last 15, 20 years.
That brings me to something that I've been thinking about, which is, okay, let's start with this. I overestimated the team a little bit. Like, I didn't think they were going to be, 12-4 or anything, but I thought they'd be. Well, number one, I thought Andrew Luck was going to play 16 games. So
yeah.
Stupid me. All of us thought that. But the point is, I thought that they could at least tread water a little bit through these first 5 or 6 games. And, look, we didn't think they'd go to Seattle and win. But here's my point I'm getting to. Forget about record. Record doesn't even matter. I think what we learned Sunday night, what I learned at least, I'll speak for myself, is that team hung with the Seattle Seahawks for 2.5 quarters of that game. It was a tied game late in the third quarter, a 7-point game, I think, with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. So, I mean, that's a toss-up game at that point. Here's the thing, though. Ultimately, a couple of things went Seattle's way, and it was like blood in the water, and they just overwhelmed the Colts. Okay, how were they able to do that? Talent. They have more talent, okay? And what what that game taught me was this is a rebuilding football team, and rebuilding is freaking hard. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what this is. Now, they would be a lot better with a healthy Andrew Luck, all right? That's not breaking news, and maybe they can pull that game off. But they still would be they still would have some holes. I mean, they have like 10 new starters on defense, and it's better, granted, but I mean, it's like you're throwing a bunch of names in a hat and just trying to make sense of it, right? And offensively, the offensive line is in transition again, and their skill positions may change a little bit. Frank Gore's going to be gone next year. Dante Moncrief might be gone, right? I mean, so they're going to have shakeups there. This is a rebuilding football team, and the fans have wanted this team to reboot for quite some time.
Right.
They've done that now.
But fans want them to win right away, too.
And that's what I'm getting to.
Doesn't happen.
I mean, do we need to adjust the lens a little bit and understand that this is going to be hard? And maybe, I'm not saying move the goalposts, but maybe just put this in context. I mean, are they what they should be right now? Maybe this is just what they are.
It's what they are.
Yeah.
They're very fragile. They're very, very flawed roster. Chris Ballard knows this.
Mm-hmm.
I think fans with perspective know this. It's going to take some time. How long does it take to build a defense from scratch, essentially? Right. I mean, you basically imploded the thing. It's going to take some time, and I don't think social media is an accurate representation of the fan base. We get a lot from fans. I mean, and you guys see it. That I don't think that's 100% of the fan base and thoughts on this team. There's just too many holes, and any smart football person understands that and sees that. It's going to take some time. You need a bunch of more Malik Hookers, and you're going to have to find them at the linebacker spot and on the defensive line and in the secondary and at the cornerback spot, and these guys need time to develop. Malik Hooker's 3 interceptions are great, but the team still gave up 46 freaking points, It's going to take some time, and I'm not sure how many more wins they have if Andrew Luck is healthy and played the first 4 games. Maybe they're 2-2. I mean, they were 1-3 last year with Andrew Luck.
Right.
So the big picture, they're 3-4 years away.
Yeah, I think it can happen faster. It just depends. It depends on how fast these guys grow, too. I mean, that's the thing. What if I think, the optimistic view of it would be maybe Malik Hooker is a Pro Bowler, right? In the short term, maybe he can be a Pro Bowler. Maybe Quincy Wilson really is as good as he looks. I don't know.
We haven't seen him in a month.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But that's the optimistic view. That's the pessimistic view is, yes, it's going to be multi years. The problem is you don't have that kind of time in the NFL. I know this process was overdue, but they need in the next couple of years to get it rolling. It has to, because, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you Andrew's getting old. No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is you have some guys who are in their prime. Well, I mean, you need to hit it while they're in their prime,
right?
Okay, and some of these guys, for example, on defense, right? The Jonathan Hankins and John Simons and the Sherrds. I mean, those guys, while they're in the first couple of years of their contracts, you want to get something sustained here, so that by the time they're coming out of those deals, you're rolling, right?
Right.
So,
and that's why the draft is monumental.
Yeah.
And that's why you're paying the price right now for 2013 and 14, and that's where you're at in 2017. So.
Yep.
And that's why you're not going to see the results in 2018, 19, 20. That's when you want to see those draft picks come into their own.
Yeah, and I just think right now, I look at this team and I wonder, what does Chris Ballard think? And I tell you what I think he thinks. I don't know this, but he told me some things certainly after he got hired, and I've told you what they were, Zach, and I'll leave the exact quote out of the podcast. But he was not very high on this roster, you might imagine.
Well, look at the moves he made.
Right,
it's evident.
Cut everybody.
Right.
Okay, right. So I think you know what he said, right? So here's my point. He certainly couldn't have had sky high expectations. Now, that doesn't mean that you should lower the bar. Like, you should expect excellence.
I could tell you Chris Ballard wanted to win that one Sunday. I talked to him briefly at halftime, and he knew how thin the margin was and how all those calls went their way, and they got that great touchdown from Dante Moncrief, and they were playing great. They were 15-10, but you could tell he knew it was far
tenuous.
Right.
Yeah.
You get that vibe.
Yeah, I think he did. He's a smart guy. He knew. But the one thing I'd say is, at the same time, I feel like he had a realistic view of the roster, and that tells you that he didn't he didn't have high expectations in terms of wins.
He said this. This is a direct quote. We talked to him the morning of the draft. He said, "You guys watched the same games I did,"
which I love, because I love when they do that. They being the people we cover,
right?
Because it confirms that we're not stupid.
Yeah, we get that
and I need that confirmation.
So rarely we hear those kind of things.
I need that confirmation, because sometimes I think I'm an idiot.
Right.
So I just need to hear that once in a while. Oh, okay, they really do suck. It's like
he was referring to the defense.
He was.
But yeah, you get it. I mean, you fans out there, you watch the team. You watch the same games we do. You know it. Mm-hmm. It is what it is.
Yeah, they have a lot of work to do. You talked about that 3-year process or whatever it might be. They have a couple big ticket things they have to deal with. The offensive line, I got to tell you, I think there's a couple guys who are banged up right now, and it probably looks worse than it is. But at the same time, they have a lot of work to do there. I don't think Anthony Costanzo's going anywhere.
They have work to do everywhere.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, obviously Ryan Kelly's not going anywhere, but they're going to have to deal with a couple pieces on that offensive line next year at least. And that's not so. I didn't think we'd be there right now, but the defense is off to a nice start. So I give Chris Ballard credit there. But offensively, he's going to have some pieces to deal with. Does he re-sign Dante Moncrief? I don't know. And if he doesn't, then you've got to deal with that position. Then you've got certainly the offensive line, running back. I mean, they have so much work to do. So I don't know, maybe you were right 3 or 4 years.
They got to beat the 49ers on Sunday.
Yeah.
They got to find a way. Forget the future. They got to win this game. Otherwise, they're 1-4, and they're giving the 49ers their first win of the season. And Peyton Manning's going to walk out of that stadium and say, "This team ain't worth shit."
Well, I was going to ask you that.
They're putting my jersey in the rafters, and they're losing to the 49ers right now.
I was going to ask you, what happens if they just go in there and just get slapped around?
You remember the great Peyton Manning quote the day his number was retired here, after he retired from the Broncos. This was 2016. He said, it was so tough. We would win 12 games every year. We'd go to the playoffs, and we would lose so many of those years. And it was so tough because you'd see teams celebrating, winning their last game of the season and going 8-8. What are you celebrating? You suck. You went 8-8.
I love that.
What have the Colts done on Week 17 the last 2 years? They have won their last game and celebrated like crazy because they got to 8-8.
He's calling out his former team without even realizing it.
And he didn't mean to do that, but the writing's on the wall.
But that just tells you his mindset. He's like,
right.
I don't care about no 8 wins.
Right. Eight wins doesn't do anything for Peyton Manning.
Keep your 8-win season. I don't give a damn about that.
I averaged 12 wins a year for 7 years in a row. So.
But that's part of the reason the guy was who he was. I mean,
right.
He just and that's infectious. Because the guys around him are like, man, Peyton's crazy.
Yeah.
We don't want to let him down.
I got a lot of that in the story. Guys, I asked every one of them, did he ever get on your nerves? Every single guy said yes immediately. Reggie Wayne, Jeff Saturday, coaches said the same thing. But every single one of them to a T said, he made me better than I ever would have been at my job. And that's the best thing a quarterback can do.
And Andrew Luck he's not the same guy. He never will be. And I think it's unfair to even expect him to be anything like Peyton Manning. But that being said, I do think he brings things up a level when he's out there.
I mean, look at the rosters in 2012 and 13 and 14.
Yeah. Well, not just in
they won 11 games.
Right. Well, it's not just that though. It's not just like he's a better player, but I also think I think guys raise their level of play as well because he makes them more confident, as we've said before, and I also think he is demanding in his own right, in his own way. He is demanding, and I think guys don't want to disappoint him. I think there is some of that with him. It's never going to be as demonstrative and as outward as it was with Peyton.
Right.
But I do think in a more subtle way he has a similar effect on these guys. So he can't get back soon enough is the bottom line here. So one quick thing before we go. I got a wood chopper. Do you have a wood chopper?
You go ahead. I'll think of one.
So I got a wood chopper of the week, and his name is Matthias Farley.
Oh, yeah.
Matthias Farley, I was wrong about Matthias Farley.
That was the prettiest interception I've seen in a long time.
Oh, that was beautiful. Matthias Farley, I got to tell you, I thought this guy was a space filler. And he's not Ronnie Lott, okay? He's not going to Canton, probably. But I don't think he is, at least. No. Unless there's something more I haven't seen. But I will say this. He is a guy who gets every ounce out of his ability that he can. There are far more talented guys on this team than Matthias Farley, but that guy maximizes his ability. I'll tell you what, he's in the right place all the time. He's a sure tackler for the most part.
Right.
And
They use him in the blitz. They bring him down in the
right.
box.
He's been versatile for them, and I think you saw the beginning of a little bit of a transition on Sunday night. Darius Butler did not play very much.
This is important to note.
Darius Butler,
Because you know they're throwing 29 in there and just having him play as much as possible.
well, he's not coming off the field.
That's not
over.
going to change.
That's over.
Right.
And every snap you take, every snap you take Malik Hooker off the field is a snap where you're not a very good team, or you're less good. I know that's not. Andrew Luck would be very disappointed in my
He's so
grammar.
ashamed of you right now.
I don't even know what I'm trying to say right now. Andrew Luck, I'm sorry, but I think that's pretty clear, right? Malik Hooker's not going anywhere. So this rotation is going to really be a matter of how many snaps does Darius Butler and Matthias Farley play. And right now, Matthias Farley, he played 90% of the snaps. So he's becoming a fixture, and it's because they can trust him to make plays. And
he's psychic.
Yes. Did you see that?
The video is incredible. This is two snaps.
He was mic'd up.
2 snaps before Malik Hooker's interception, and Farley says, "You're going to get one. You're going to get one." And then you saw Malik Hooker's incredible interception. I couldn't tell if Malik caught it with one hand or two.
No, he caught it with one hand.
He made it look so easy.
Oh
my goodness gracious.
I saw a great replay of it in slow motion. He catches the ball one-handed and never even puts his second hand on the ball.
Yeah.
Tucks it away, and then stiff arms a guy to the ground.
That was so smooth
with his left arm.
He was not
what?
even stunned by the interception. Sometimes the defensive player's like,
right.
"Oh, what do I do?" Man, 3 interceptions in the first 4 games, tied for the league lead as a rookie. He's only had 3 starts and he's got 3 picks.
The guy is as good as advertised. I never say that about rookies.
Your first draft pick stays with you if you're a general manager. Chris Ballard did himself pretty good.
Yeah, and remember draft night. Now we were all looking at each other like, "Huh, Malik Hooker, huh?"
Yeah,
and boy, they hit it out of the park.
Without
this
him,
kid is so talented.
like Chris Ballard said, that's how you change a game. And this defense isn't good enough to win you a lot of games. He can change you a game, and he can win you a game if it's close with kind of plays like that.
Yeah, and if he gets a little help, he just might do that.
Right.
I'll tell you who's not a wood chopper. I know I'm getting off subject here. Terrell Basham, by the way. I saw that Chris Ballard on his radio show, or on the Colts radio show, he took a couple – I don't want to say he took a shot at him, but he gave him a little dose of reality there. He's not getting it done. Their rookie defensive end, outside linebacker out of University of Ohio. When's the last time you called his name? Because I certainly haven't.
This guy's living on special teams right now. Him and Zach Banner both, I think, during camp.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't see him do anything with the first unit at all. Zach Banner got his pink slip when cuts were announced, and Terrell Basham is really just a special teams guy right now. I think I talked to him last week. He's getting 10 to 12 snaps on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't flashed at all. And from that position, that's what you need to do. Switching gears, I'm going to give my woodchopper of the week to a local guy. I'm going to give it to Krishawn Hogan. Made history on Sunday, was the first player from Marion University, which is in Indianapolis, to ever play in the NFL. That's very cool. This is a guy that basically wasn't supposed to ever make it at Marion, was kicked out of transferred. The long story, was working overnight, was a janitor at Lucas Oil Stadium at the convention center. 4 years later, he's playing for the team, right?
Serendipitous story.
Made a great tackle on special teams on Sunday night. I asked him after the game, I said, "I didn't know you could tackle people. You're a wide receiver." And he said, "I'll do whatever it takes to stay on this team." So on a really bad night for the Colts, a really, really bad third and fourth quarter, shout out to Krishawn Hogan for one, being a great story, and for 2, for sticking on the team.
Yeah, that's a serendipitous story right there. That's also an Andrew Luck word.
Yes.
I'm proud of myself. All right, so I think that's enough for today. I got work to do. Zach's got work to do, and you got places to be. So we're going to get out of here. But Andrew Luck's back, sort of, kind of. And
you're right. It's a big step. Today was a big step.
Big step
for him.
Big step. So, all right, so we'll be back to chop some more wood next week. Thanks for listening. I'm Stephen Holder with Zach Keefer, and this is Chopping Wood.